Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, How to Construct an Amazing Career at Pulte, hosted by YoPros. My name is Nick Andriano and I'm a sales consultant in Illinois. I'm also a member of YoPros, which is short for Young Professionals, and that's one of our business resource groups. As a member of YoPros, it gives me great joy to moderate today's conversation with three senior leaders who built their entire career here at Pulte Homes. Today, we're going to hear about their experiences, a little bit about what they learned along the way, and hopefully we'll get you all motivated about opportunities to grow your own career at Pulte Homes. Before we kick off the conversation, let's meet today's panelists. First, we'll start with Rebecca Lundberg. Rebecca, thank you for joining.
Thanks so much for having me today, Nick, and thanks obviously to you and the YoPros for hosting today's webinar.
Rebecca is the division president for Arizona, and she has been with Pulte for 17 years now. Up next, we have Sean Strickler. Welcome, Sean.
There we go. First screw up in the webinar. Good to see you, Nick. Glad to be here. Thanks for hosting. Really good to be with everybody.
Absolutely. Sean has been with Pulte for over 28 years and is currently acting as the division president in West Florida. And finally, last but not least, we have Charlie Tipton. Thanks for joining us, Charlie.
Yeah, Nick, thanks for having me as well. I appreciate being alongside two leaders that I have a ton of respect for, Rebecca and Sean, and appreciate all you that have joined to hear our Pulte story today.
Perfect. Charlie serves as the area president for the Southeast area and has been with Pulte for 21 years. So before we get started with the questions, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping rules. When you have questions, the crowd, throughout this webinar, please take a moment to type them into the question box on your Zoom panel. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Additionally, I have a number of questions that obviously I'll be asking, and I'm going to direct them to specific panelists. That being said, today we're looking for a conversation more than anything else. So Rebecca, Sean, Charlie, don't hesitate to jump in and share your own experiences, even if I didn't direct the question to you initially. So if that all makes sense, there's no further questions, I'll get started with an easy one today. So Rebecca, I'm going to open with you. Tell us something about yourself that we can't find on your LinkedIn profile.
Well, I think I'm glad that you're asking about my LinkedIn and not maybe asking about my Facebook or my Snapchat. One of the things that you can't find out about me on my LinkedIn is actually that I was a professional ballerina back when I was 17 years old. I joined the Moscow City Ballet as a soloist and got to tour with that company through parts of Russia, as well as the United Kingdom, and also through Southeast Asia. I think one of the highlights of my career was being able to perform for the Prime Minister of Singapore, although it was not my best performance because I actually fell flat on my face in the middle of the stage during that performance, but still nonetheless loved the opportunity to perform for somebody like that.
That is pretty astounding. It's incredible to kind of see where people come from at this company. We have a lot of depth, I think, in the careers that we've seen here. And to that end, I apologize, but Charlie and Sean, you guys are gonna have to follow that one up. What is something we can't find on your LinkedIn? I'll start with you, Charlie.
Yeah, well, I can't sing or dance, but I have spent my whole career in construction, even before I started here at the company. So for 2 summers when I was in college, I worked as a framer, and framer's probably not exactly what I did. I was more of a board toter, but in those hot, humid Charleston summer heat, it was quite the experience. So I did learn a lot about framing, which was my intentions, but also learned what hard work it was. You know, every day you'd go home completely drenched in sweat, covered in sawdust, and it made me appreciate the fact that you know, I had the opportunity to get a college education and pursue my dreams. But I think the most important thing I learned was how hardworking those individuals were on the framing crew, and it really gave me an appreciation for what our trades go through on a daily basis out there working the elements to help support our business. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Nick. I clearly wasn't a ballerina. I'm glad I didn't have to follow Rebecca with that one. So for me, you know, I pretty much held every job imaginable growing up. It wasn't because I was getting fired, but it was just because I grew up pretty modest upbringing. And as you learned about in our our pre-taping, if you watched it, I was a paper boy and a lawn boy as my two first positions. My LinkedIn would be incredibly long if I were to fill it out. I've also been I worked in the grocery store, in the meat department. Trust me, you don't want to know what goes into hamburger. I think probably the most interesting one though was when I was at Michigan State, I was attending school, they had an elective class that was windsurfing, and I taught windsurfing while I was going to school, which kind of explains why I live in flip-flops when I'm not at the office. And when I started, I had kind of the surfer boy flow. But that was certainly interesting, being a professor in a way while also going to school.
So all walks of life, right? It's interesting to see. Not everyone's has a curated career. Everyone has their own pathway, and they can find their way to success, kind of with their own method. So it's encouraging. I had my own humble beginnings, so it gives me a little bit of hope for what I can become in the future. I'm going to direct the first real question to Sean, since you just came off the docket there. When you started at Pulte, do you remember what brought you to our company? What did you hope to get out of the Pulte experience?
Well, you're asking me to remember something 28 years ago, Nick, so that's kind of tough. But I will tell you, so when I went to school at Michigan State, go green, I was getting my degree in construction management, and I had gone to school and I had not gotten a lot of construction experience when I was going to school. I framed houses for one winter, if you could call it that. I cut the cord more than I framed anything with the circular saw. But I knew that that Pulte was headquartered at that point in Metro Detroit, which was only about an hour and a half down the road from Michigan State. And it appealed to me because Pulte was a large home builder at that point in time. So the stability drew me in, and the fact that it was close to home was appealing as well. Pulte did a bunch of college recruiting at Michigan State because it was one of the few major universities that had a construction program back in the day. I knew the Bill Pulte story. I knew that he started it as an 18-year-old without a college education. And I also knew that it was really the true American success story. And growing up in Michigan and having probably 75–80% of the population working for automakers, you just have that kind of loyalty and the draw for that American-made product. And so it was great to, ironically, I had my 5-year degree, should have been a 4-year degree, but I had my degree, my bachelor's degree in construction. I interviewed for an internship because I simply wanted to get my foot in the door with Pulte. I knew, and I was hoping simply that maybe it would be a resume builder, maybe it would be something that would grow into something, that I didn't expect. I interviewed, I'll never forget it, I interviewed with a guy named Kyle Davidson, who was our controller. He did all of our interviews back in the day, and he talked to me and said, Sean, I know you're interviewing here for a construction internship, but you've been waiting tables to put yourself through college. What do you think? Obviously, you know how to talk to people. What do you think about trying sales and seeing how that works? And if that doesn't work out for you, then you can step into construction. And so it was a really important point in my career where Kyle kind of led me down that path to sales. I tried it. I loved it. I don't think that my division president at the time wanted to hire me, but I convinced him. And almost 30 years later, here I am.
So you sold yourself. You used sales right out of the gate, huh? You convinced him? Perfect.
Yeah, first 10 years was in sales, and then jumped into operations and vice president of sales, and then vice president of operations, and eventually led to leading my own division here in West Florida, which is in Tampa, in 2015.
Perfect.
Impressive, Sean. I also was construction management major, and decided to pursue my career here. All my buddies were moving to, I like the idea of moving to a big city. I'd grown up in a really small town, and I like the idea of working for a big construction company and getting some residential experience to sort of further my education. But my plan was to work here for a few years and then leave and go out and do my own thing and be a custom builder. That was the plan I had identified. And lo and behold, as we know, plans always change. And few months after I started in May of 2001, 9/11 happened. And, 4 months on the job, this major tragedy occurred and really changed my perspective on everything. The economy was struggling. There was a lot of fear out there. And my perspective quickly recognized what I had here at this company. And from the stability and employment to living in a big city without any family, and first time kind of recognizing what that big work family meant to me. So it was a game changer, and was kind of setting the stage for, taking a job and starting to make it into a career for me.
It's interesting. So like the experience that you were looking for kind of transitioned into experience that you needed at the time, having a family, having like a support group around you. That's a really reassuring thing to hear about the company that you work at, I think. I've had a similar experience myself. Very good. I'm going to go on to the next question. Rebecca, I haven't heard from you yet, so I'm going to kick this one your way if that's okay. Tell us about a time when you took on a new responsibility at Pulte, like a new project or even started an entirely new division or region. How did it work out, and what did you take from the experience?
Great question, Nick. So I've actually relocated with the company on 5 different occasions. And I can tell you that although I feel like I am an expert on a relocation program, it never really gets easier to leave behind the friends and family that you have in the city that you're moving from. And in particular, the comforts of your favorite restaurant, and especially your coworkers. But every single time that I relocated, it was an incredible experience. And I think I'll highlight maybe 2 things or 2 benefits for me from a relo standpoint. Number one, I was able to take the best practices and my favorite things from any division that I worked in and bring them to the new division. And then in my new role and in my new region, I was able to look at the business differently, see different processes, see the way different meetings were run, see the way different approaches were taken to similar business, situations. And I feel like that really helped me grow in my leadership and my understanding of the business. I would also tell you that along the way, I've built a really great network of some outstanding people in every single one of those divisions. So even today, as we were navigating through, maybe the most pronounced supply chain challenges ever in our industry, or as we're working through a shifting sales environment, I have so many people that I can reach out to and pick their brains or use them as a sounding board or see what they're doing that's really effective to help ensure that I'm applying that to my work. So I think without a doubt, the people really made those relocations come together. If I could, though, I may pivot to something that it impacted for me personally as well. Every single relocation, obviously, not only am I making new friends and building new relationships within work, but so is my family. I have a husband and 3 children, and I was actually pregnant with our 3rd and final child at the end of 2015 and beginning of 2016 when I did my relocation from Arizona to the Bay Area. And I actually took over 30 flights while I was pregnant with my daughter during that relocation. So I spent quite a bit of time in airport bathrooms. And in those bathrooms, I saw the brand name Sloan on a lot of the bath fixtures and on the toilets. And I absolutely fell in love with the name. So when my daughter was born, that was what we called her. We called her Sloan. And today she's 6 years old. And I think it's awesome because we'll go into, a public restroom and she'll look and she'll be like, "Mommy, look, it's me." Yes, it's you. I just hope that when she's 21, she likes seeing her name on the back of a toilet as much as she does today at 6.
Interesting tidbit too. Sloan was Ferris Bueller's girlfriend's name. So you can weave that in there.
Yes, I like that too. Another good reason for the name.
Maybe pitch it that way when you're telling her why you gave her that.
Yeah,
name.
I think that might go a little
I don't know.
better.
You guys, my oldest daughter is mortified. She's like, "I cannot believe you named her after a toilet." Well, I guess that's what happens when you work in home building,
Yeah. Hey, do you have any pro tips for air travel? Are you a pre-check person? Do you do anything like that? It sounds like you have a lot of experience.
Oh my gosh, it is really funny you ask that. I am not pre-check. However, my husband is pre-check and he travels far less than I do. But the way he got his pre-check is we were in Napa at a concert many years ago, and they had a mobile pre-check service right there. And he was able to get everything done. But unfortunately, because I'm Canadian and I did not have my green card on me at the time, I couldn't process mine at the same time. So I still don't have it all these years later, much to his dismay, but he's great and carries all the luggage through security for us.
Oh, very good. So we're getting tips here. So pre-checks, probably good, depends on your nationality. And then don't forget to name your children after fixtures in our homes. So this is
Kohler, Toto,
there you go.
Gerber.
Options are endless.
All sorts of options.
What about Charlie and Sean? Do you guys have any experiences about when you were taking on big new responsibilities or big career changes?
Yeah, there's one thing that comes to mind. I was a area construction manager and was really enjoying my role of managing half of the Charleston market. And the division president came to me and said, "Hey, we really like you to come into the office and take over procurement and architecture." And things weren't going well from budget takeoff standpoint, floor plan accuracy, creating a lot of challenges. And I'll be honest, my first reaction was, I don't think that's the right role for me. I'm really enjoying my time out in the field. I feel like that's where I belong. But after further discussions, they convinced me that this would be a great career opportunity, that I kind of reached the point where I needed to do something different, and coming into the office would get me a lot more exposure to the business. And I'll tell you, it's the best career decision I ever made. I was able to come in, really leverage the experience I had out in the field with sales and construction to help rebuild that procurement department, to help just improve the results that we were delivering. It got me so much exposure to other aspects, other functions, working with land, working with finance, which drives so much of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I got to see the results of the department sort of turning around as we started to bridge the relationship between sales, construction, and procurement. We started to see instantly their improvement in the results. And so overall, I think it was probably one of the best decisions that really led to my ongoing growth here. And I think the lesson that I learned is, change is hard. It's a little scary to take on a new position. Like Rebecca mentioned, all the moving she did, I'm sure that came with a lot of concerns, and how do you overcome that? But I think one thing that was encouraging to me was that the DP was asking me to do this. So obviously he saw something in me that maybe I hadn't even seen in myself at that point. So, what I would encourage those out there that are sort of thinking about the next steps in their careers is really think about that. Think about, eventually you got to sort of take a chance, take a little bit of risk. But, if people think you can do it, typically they've seen something in you that has given them a good indication that you're going to be successful at it.
That's really good advice. If I may, I'm going to try and summarize both your point and Rebecca's really quickly, because the thing I heard out of both of them, I mean, obviously they're big adversities that you're taking on willingly, and that's always hard in and of itself. But the thing that you grew out of both of them wasn't so much just building a division or reframing the architecture portion of the division you were working in, but it was being able to create networks and connections through these new branches that you open yourselves up to. So it's a certain interconnectedness that you wouldn't have had availability to if you hadn't taken on the opportunity. So that's an interesting thing, is like, how do you branch out of your comfort zone? Like for me, it's sales. I go to sales meetings, all salespeople. We talk about sales stuff, make sales jokes. But then you start incorporating construction, you talk to procurement, you talk to finance. Like you said, it's important to be able to build those relationships with other people within the company. So that's really helpful. All right. We have nothing else on that one. I've got more questions. Don't worry, you guys aren't done yet. So, Charlie, you did so good on the last question. I might kick this one to you as well. How about that? Tell us about a time of challenge or adversity in your career, and how did you overcome it?
Well, there's been plenty of those along the 21 years. There's one thing that comes to mind, and that's, you talk about sort of the relationships. Well, as you grow in your career, relationships change. There are people that might be your peers today that one day are going to be your superior or maybe your subordinate. There was one particular instance where I actually, because of the movement that I had, I leaped over someone that had previously been my boss, someone that had helped develop me, that had really gotten me this opportunity through the mentorship that they had provided for years and years. But as a result of kind of me getting that promotion and now this person reporting to me, it was a little bit of a challenge. That individual wasn't necessarily, was excited for me, but at the same time was a little disappointed that they had not got the opportunity. But I had to make sure that this person knew the value that they had provided, because they were very, very good at their job. And I needed them to continue to help make our department and our division successful. And so a lot of times we're going to encounter these situations and it can be uncomfortable, but how did I challenge it? By overcome the challenge was talking through the situation, making sure that that person knew how much I appreciated all the investment that they had made in me that helped me grow my career. And then it was my opportunity to kind of repay that IOU and start investing in them. And I think, through the ongoing communication, through kind of leveraging their strengths and empowering them to do their job and do it well, our relationship was stronger than it had ever been. And so I think a good lesson there is, you're going to encounter these situations where, maybe you're at odds with, or maybe just a little bit of tension there with a coworker, or with a superior, or with a subordinate. Being able to talk through it, if you can talk through it and you can understand the situation, then you can overcome, just about any of those challenging situations. And it certainly paid off for me.
Yeah, for me, Nick, having been with the company during the housing crash, which was by far the worst thing and the most challenging thing I've ever had to go through at the company. So from 2007 to 2011, we ended up losing really 75% of our workforce, and it was the family and the friends and your coworkers that you had to say goodbye to. And it was an incredibly, remember coming home from work on Fridays, and my wife, Michelle, would just kind of look at me with wide eyes and wonder if my number had been called. Yeah. During that time, my position actually as vice president of operations, which was kind of like the proving ground to become a division president, was eliminated, and I was asked to go back and lead our sales efforts as our vice president of sales, which I happily did. But a couple things I want to touch on. First of all, what it taught me was never take a sale or a unit of traffic or a closing for granted. Back then, it certainly gave me an appreciation for the basics. We were scratching and clawing for every buyer we possibly could find. It taught us the importance of, community level marketing and taking traffic generation upon yourself and not necessarily relying on your marketing team to get that traffic. And to draw a parallel kind of to what we're going through today, there's so much negativity in the news right now. And anytime you pick up your phone or you pick up the paper, you turn on the TV, they're talking about the demise of the housing market. And a lot of you haven't been through a market correction like we're going through. And what I would tell you is what we went through back then is 100% different than what we're going through today. Back then, the housing market really caused the downfall of the stock market. We were massively oversupplied. There was no financial regulations. Everybody was buying multiple homes. They didn't need a job. They basically just needed to fog a mirror and they could get a mortgage. Obviously, we know in today's day and age, that's completely different. And probably the only thing that I retained from my economics class at Michigan State was the law of supply and demand. And back then we had massive oversupply and very little demand. Today we have massive undersupply, and still we have very good demand. And so the news is picking up on some of the negativity that's out there. And obviously supply is increasing, but it's normalizing. And so I would view what we're going through as a normalization of the housing market. It's actually, I think, a good thing because it will actually help us find windows and drywall and cabinets and countertops and some of the things we haven't been able to locate before. And what we were going through simply wasn't sustainable in terms of how quickly prices were rising. So I guess long answer, but I would encourage everybody to go back to the basics. Focus on your storefronts, focus on your website quality and the images that are on your website. Focus on your signage and really push some of that, some of the traffic generation down to the community level, and don't take your buyers or your traffic for granted.
I think that's A really good point, Sean. I think it's ultimately about in life and in business, focusing on the parts of the business that we can control, right? Because some of those other things like consumer sentiment or interest rates are really outside of our control. And so maybe if I go back, Charlie touched upon a period of time in his career where he was getting promoted, and Sean touched upon a point in time where he was kind of shifting roles, but in the middle of his kind of climb up the ladder. So it might take some career opportunity to discuss something that happened right at the very beginning of my career. For me, I started as a college recruit, and I was really passionate about college recruiting because of that. And so I actually wanted to step up and lead our college recruitment efforts when I was a pretty new sales consultant, but the company picked somebody else to do that. And at first, I was a little bit frustrated that I wasn't the one who had the opportunity when I'd raised my hand, but I decided to kind of turn that around and say, look, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And so instead, I became a really strong second to the person who had stepped up as the college recruitment lead. I got to learn from them, and I got to help support them in being as successful as possible. And over time, people quickly identified that, I should maybe be given this opportunity to step up and help lead our college recruitment efforts. And so a few months later, I actually was given that chance. And I think part of the reason that I share that story is it's not always about yes, and it's not always about, getting the promotion. Sometimes it's about not getting it. And then what does it mean in the way you respond? And how can you go out and put in the work and learn from those around you to ultimately demonstrate your capabilities so that people recognize what you can do, and those doors will eventually open, even if it's not kind of the path that you were thinking that they may open on.
I love that. This is one of my favorite questions because I think everyone, no matter who it is on this call, where you are, you're going to be experiencing some level of adversity throughout your career at some point. It's just nature of the beast. I hate to tell it to you, but that's how it's going to break. But I think it was Charlie mentioning earlier, at some point you might get a tap on the shoulder, and it's your chance. That is your opportunity to take advantage of it, because that means someone else noticed something in you that they want to see highlighted, and they want to see you take advantage of the skills that you have. And Rebecca just mentioned how, maybe you don't get that tap right away, but you can learn from that experience and figure out what you need to do to get that recognition. So it's important that, from what I'm hearing from the three of you, is if you have an issue, if you're experiencing adversity, first of all, communicate and then over communicate. And we can trust our team around us. We're all in it together. So work together. Sean's mentioning that fundamentals, before anything else, you have to go back to your basics, make sure that your shop and your business and the way you conduct your day-to-day work is on point and exact. Then you can build up from there. And then Rebecca mentioned that, hey, when you do make mistakes, we're all going to keep an eye out for what you can be doing different. And I'm sorry, Rebecca, you didn't explicitly make a mistake. There just was someone else there who is being maybe a little bit more groomed for the position, but you can learn from them, and you can learn from others around you, and continue to build up your own brand and make yourself the fit for the position that you're looking for. So I always love this question. I think it's very fitting for everyone.
Nick, I can assure you I have made lots of mistakes, so that comment was still fitting.
Okay, well, there you go. Very good. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna keep the ball rolling here. So Sean, let's bring it back to you. I wanted to ask you, it's a very big question. When did you realize you could make an impact at Pulte?
Well, this is deep. Well, for me, there was really three different times in my career with the company when I realized I could make a significant difference, and it came early in my career, and then kind of midway through my career, and then today where we are. So I mentioned earlier, my division president in Michigan at the time wasn't necessarily a huge fan of mine, and the first community that I was asked to go sell was when it was kind of sink or swim time for me. I hadn't really been offered the job yet, but it was looking likely. So my first assignment was to go into a community in Monroe, Michigan called Carrington Farms, which was basically a cornfield with nothing. And we had 6 completed houses, no model. And my job was to sell that thing out. And so The first 45 days that I was there, I didn't sell anything and I started to get really nervous. And then, my first sale hit, and it was that momentum and that feeling that I got from the first sale and the confidence that I got with knowing that I was helping somebody make what was going to be the biggest decision of their life. It was a home that they were going to, be raising their kids in and growing old together in and celebrating birthdays in. And the fact that we get to do that on a day-to-day basis, granted, we do it in some different way, shape, or form, whether finance or land or construction or customer care, but what we do is really cool. And you have a tremendous impact to make a difference on somebody's life. The second big aha for me came when I was asked to be a Top Gun mentor, which that back in the day was the equivalent to our CFT today. So our certified field trainers are tasked with training all of our new hires and teaching them the Pulte way. I trained, I don't even know how many people, but it was awesome because it made me sharpen my saw. I was always on game and on point, and more importantly to me, I got to groom some of the future leaders of our company. And I mentioned earlier, I get a lot of motivation and satisfaction out of seeing other people succeed. And so some of those people see what they've done after Pulte or still with Pulte is really encouraging. And then finally, our Built to Honor program. It's not often that you're going to find a company that's as focused and dedicated to giving back to the communities that we do business in. Built to Honor really hit home for me on September 11th. I was at an ops meeting, ironically, in one of our model homes. And from there on, I had a huge appreciation for our military, and I think it's incredible what we do. In fact, we have a Built to Honor ribbon cutting tomorrow in our division that I'm looking forward to. So 3 different times, one is a newbie, second is kind of a midpoint in my career, and then today, making a difference for in the communities that we do business in, specifically for our veterans.
That was a very good answer. There's a lot of layers to that on you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling the American dream, if we're going to use the cliche, but it is very true. But then also the culture of the company going all the way through the Built to Honor program and process. It is a certain level of exceptionalism that you don't see much elsewhere. So it's cool to be a part of that. Charlie, Rebecca, do you guys have anything that you want to add on that?
No, that was really, really good. Hey, for Sean, rather than answer that, will you tell everybody just a quick synopsis of the story about your Built to Honor family tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure. I'd be happy to. So tomorrow we're dedicating a home to a Gold Star family. A Gold Star family is the remaining family of a fallen service member. In this particular family, Sergeant Alberto Montron lost his life in Afghanistan on his 4th tour, which left a 6-year-old fatherless at the time back in 2006 named Nazarea. Naz has kind of taken over the motherly role of watching after her 3 younger siblings after her dad passed. Her mother, unfortunately, last year passed away due to illness, and so it left a 22-year-old as the caregiver, the big sister, and the parent all in one. And so tomorrow's really special for a couple of reasons. First of all, we surprised Naz with the fact that she had been selected on the anniversary of her mother's passing, on the 1-year anniversary, and then tomorrow just happens to be her mom's birthday. So it's really a cool story, and this is going to be our second Built to Honor Gold Star family dedication, and we're super proud to be a part of it.
That's amazing. Just congratulations to you and your team, and thank you on behalf of all of us for giving back to this deserving family. I think if there's ever a need for motivation on why you want to work for this company, that story right there says it all.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're really, really excited. And she is the most mature 22-year-old you'll ever meet. So she's very deserving of this.
Well said, Charlie. And thank you, Sean, for all the work that you did on that as well. It's a pretty incredible thing. And it is exceptional to be a part of it as well. So that's very exciting for everyone here on this call. Charlie, I was going to pivot to you. Let's see. Did you always want to be a division president, or an area president? And when did that goal, this is important because I'm asking it, when did that goal seem attainable to you?
Yeah. It's funny, I've got a PDP that I ran across about a year ago and I've saved it. But it was from 2005. So I've been with the company for about 4 years. And back then they were handwritten PDPs. So nothing fancy online. They had probably been Xerox like 100 times. So, the boxes are all crooked on the paper. But on that form, they had a place for personal goals and then your long-term professional goals. And I bring up personal goals because I think it's really important that you understand your team members' personal goals, because your personal goals and professional goals aren't aligned, then you're not going to be here 20, 28 years, like the three of us. But back to the professional goals, on this long-term goal, I'd written in division president. And I remember I was so excited, I'd like, this is it. This is the pinnacle for me. I want to be a DP. And so I met with the VP of construction to do my annual review. And I remember going through it and him saying, DP, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know I've only been here 4 years, but I feel like this is it. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to get there. And the feedback I got was as direct as you can get. And he said, that's great, but if you want to be a division president, you want to lead this division, you got to start by sitting in the front of the room instead of the back. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I share that with the group because, instantly it was a little bit of self-reflection, because so many managers could have said, oh yeah, you're 4 years in, you just keep doing what you're doing, but that would have served me no good. But him saying in that moment, hey, if you want to lead a group, then you need to start by influencing others. It's not just enough to kind of manage your own business. Like, you need to think about how you stand out amongst your peers, how you start to, provide solutions to other people's problems, how, it's not just talking, it's making sure that they want to follow you and creating that followership. And so I'll tell you, from that week forward, I was always sitting in the front of the room when it came to our weekly construction meeting. So good lesson learned. I think it shows the significance of providing direct feedback so I could respond and react to it. When did I realize it was attainable? I think getting on the ops team. Once I became a VP of construction, I really started to understand all the different roles, how the puzzle pieces fit together, see how the decisions were made. And that's when I started to realize, okay, now I get it. I'm starting to understand it. I got a lot to learn, but I got a better picture, and this is what I need to accomplish to be able to be a DP one day.
It's funny, Charlie, because back in 2005, while you had division president on your PDP, I was just a thankful college graduate who actually had a job. And so early on in my career, I did not have my sights set on the division president role. I was thankful for a paycheck that was going to support me and my young family. I think much like Charlie said, it wasn't until I sat at the ops table that I really felt like that division president seat was something that I wanted to aspire to. What's interesting, though, is that I'm somebody who always wants to feel like I am 100% ready for the next job. And the reality is that you are never 100% ready because you've not sat in the chair, and you don't know what you don't know until you're in it. And so for me, even though I had aspirations as a VP of sales to become a division president, it wasn't really until I got to Northern California as the vice president of operations and got to oversee and learn more about and influence our operations in construction and customer care and procurement and land for a short while. It felt like it really created a breadth and broader perspective on the business that I was missing up until that point. That said, I do think that it's important for people to have confidence in what their capabilities are. And at the end of the day, if you approach it well, much like Charlie was saying, if you're going out and you're learning, you're asking questions and you're seeking to understand and you're putting in the incremental effort and you're sitting at the front of the room, the likelihood that that opportunity becomes yours certainly increases.
Yeah, if I could jump in too, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head. And what's so exciting to me, when I think about when I started with the company, it was fairly typical for division and department leaders to come from one discipline, from a division president perspective or an area president perspective. Frequently it was the finance discipline. And huge shout out and kudos to the company for being open to leaders from sales to be tasked with leading a division. And Charlie's from construction. And I think it just helps to provide that pathway for everybody that's on this call, that it doesn't matter your background or your college training. If you have an aspiration to move up, chances are there's an opportunity for it here.
That's the perfect bookend to kind of how we started the conversation with those questions about, what's not on your LinkedIn profile page. I mean, we're coming from all different walks of life, all different experiences, but it's incredible to see where a little bit of initiative, a little bit of communication, where that can get you. I think we're looking at it right now on this call. Just, cover me with your hand, and then you got everybody else and some success. But as it happens, we're kind of getting towards the tail end of the webinar here. So I want to make sure that we carved out time to answer some of the questions and such that we have. So I want to say on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, Rebecca, Sean, and Charlie. I feel like we've all learned a good amount. And at this time, I'm going to hand over the QA session to Brittany Stewart, our Corporate Communications Manager.
Thank you, Nick. And this has been such a great conversation. We're going to keep it going with these questions that we have received so far. As a reminder, please feel free to type your questions for Rebecca, Sean, Charlie, and Nick into the Q&A box located near the bottom of your screen. Nick is also joining the panel for Q&A, so feel free to ask Nick any questions you have about his experience as a young professional at Pulte or about joining a business resource group. So Sean, our first question is for you. What is your suggestion for advocating for yourself when it comes to navigating non-traditional routes to leadership? Is it always necessary to go rung by rung?
My recommendation would simply be to expose yourself to other disciplines, regardless of the discipline that you're in. We used to go through part of our development plan, and one that I encourage our team to do and take is to make sure that you're setting aside opportunities to get exposed through a shadow exercise of somebody in a different department, because it provides you with insight into some of the struggles and the challenges that some of the other departments face because of your action, or in some cases, inaction in your department. And so, we're one big family. If there's a problem out there, it's a Pulte problem. And so I think getting exposed to some of those other disciplines out there provides new respect, and who knows, it could also provide a different path for you to consider to go down in your career at Pulte.
Thanks, Sean. Great answer. Exposure is definitely essential. Our next question comes from Jeffrey Schofield. Rebecca, I'll shoot this question to you. How have you been able to balance ambition and patience in creating the foundation for your home building career?
It's a great question, Jeff. I think for me, I am inherently impatient, as you know, because you and I have had the opportunity to work together. And so I think for me, what I balanced with that was the relocation component. As I sit and I look at the opportunities that existed in Arizona way back when I was in sales, there were 4 general sales manager positions, and we have 4 in the division today. And so if you're a high-performing sales consultant who isn't willing to relocate, but wants the opportunity to be more strategic and to influence the broader operations to help with startup, you need to wait for one of 4 spots to be vacated. Whereas today in the company, there are over 70 general sales managers. And so if you are willing to relocate, there is likely going to be an opportunity a little bit sooner for you if you're able to go to another division. And so I think for me, I recognized that relocating was going to maybe accelerate that growth, but I was also humble enough and had leaders and mentors provide me with radical candor around the fact that I needed to grow certain skills and evolve as not only a business person, but as a leader within the organization. And so that gave me humility along the way to not try to reach before it was really too soon. When you have those people who are trusted in your network and who are helping to lift you up, they will kind of give you the nod when the time is right and when you are most ready to take that next step. So I think I balanced and really took to heart what those individuals were saying, but then I also knew I accelerated that through relocation.
Great response. Thank you, Rebecca. Our next question, most professional and academic career services strongly encourage young professionals to job hop or leave one company for another, largely due to recruiting companies offering better compensation compared to their current employers. If someone wants to build their career, would it make more sense to job hop into careers or positions with better compensation? While Pulte has great professional development programs and compensation, the thought that our managers always have our professional and personal interests at heart sounds a bit naive. And hoping that management will tap us on the shoulder for promotion seems like a riskier bet than hopping around. I will open that question to any of the panelists. And again, the question.
I'd love to take that one.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
So I'm living proof that that good things can happen at Pulte with patience and perseverance and a focus on development. I get it. We're in a world where your phone is you're probably getting messages from headhunters today. I know I am. There's always going to be an opportunity to make an extra buck out there, but I guarantee you, and having led people at this company for 28 years, I've seen a lot of people leave, and I've seen a lot of people reach it back out to me and say, I want to come back. You're going to be hard pressed to find a company that is committed to culture, is committed to quality, where you feel like you're doing the right thing, and is bought into your development as we have here at Pulte. It's a unicorn. I really don't think that it exists. So I would tell you patience, humbleness, reaching out and childlike curiosity. If you don't know the answer to something, ask a question, and taking ownership of your own development, and the sky's the limit.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for tackling that question. Charlie, I'll throw this next question to you. How have you been able to maintain your daily drive or passion for the job after 20 plus years with the same company?
Yeah, I think it's really easy because I'm learning and growing every single day. I've been an area president now for 10 months, and there's still so much I don't know about this business, and it's always changing. And I think that's what keeps it interesting, is every day is unique. And so I think always just kind of push to figure out, hey, what's next? What's the next challenge that I want to take on? Rebecca hit on this earlier, and it's like, hey, kind of be willing to do the job before you get it. And I think some of that ties into all the questions that we've been getting, is how do you raise your hand and say, hey, I want to learn more about this. I want to take on this project or this challenge that's not only going to help me in my development, but also put the division or my department or whatever it might be in a better place. So you just got to challenge yourself. And I think when you do that, it really makes everything that you put in worthwhile.
Thank you, Charlie. I'll open up the next question to all of the panelists. What, in your opinion, could put Pulte ahead of the pack as an employer and as a company in service?
I'll jump in. Oh, go ahead, Nick. No, you go ahead.
I'll do it really quick. I would say one of the unique experiences that I've had with Pulte was when I came here from the first day. I clipped on my name tag. I did feel like I was a part of the team, so to speak, and a part of the culture. And that's something that, coming from my past experiences, that wasn't a given. So I really appreciated that about the company. But then more recently, Pulte has added business resource groups, the BRGs. So Young Professionals, the YoPros is one of those. But we also have Peace, and we also have Happy Home. So they're select affinity groups that help people kind of join with like-minded individuals from around the company and work towards progress in a company culture that they're seeking. They can kind of build the company and flesh it out the way that they want it to be, which is unbelievably exceptional and something that you aren't going to find in a lot of places. You don't get that sort of agency. And I thought that was really exciting, as one of the reasons I jumped onto YoPros right away, and something I'm excited to continue growing in the years to come. So I thought that was interesting and unique about Pulte.
Nick, I think that's awesome, and one of many examples why I personally believe that we already are ahead of the pack. I look at what we care about and what centers us. Sean mentioned a few of these things, right? We care about doing the right thing, We care about inspiring our employees. We care about putting the customer first, all in an effort to be America's most trusted home builder. And I think we embody it through the onboarding programs we have, the training programs that we have, the formal and informal mentoring programs that we have available, the extracurricular, stuff, as Nick talked about from a BRG perspective. And then I certainly think the work that Sean is doing, when it comes to his building homes for heroes, and what we are delivering when it comes to our Built to Honor program. We're doing one here in Arizona. I actually just shared that we just finished up our Notes of Love a couple of weeks ago for one of our local heroes here in Arizona. And I feel like those things all brought together really create an organization that is already ahead of the pack.
Great answer.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Brittany, too. I would just say that it's always been, Bill Pulte, our founder, firmly believed that the number one competitive advantage we have over our competition is our people. And so I think it's just continuing to develop and groom our people. And, the BRGs that have been rolled out a couple of years ago now have been really effective at making a big company very small and relatable. And it's encouraging to see. And I think about some of my counterparts that I talk with at some of the other home building companies. And I assure you, they don't have that level of sophistication or buy-in to making sure that their team feels included, as well as that our managers and leadership team are as invested in their development as an employee. So straight from Bill's mouth, he used to spend a lot of time in my model in Michigan. So he was one of the most humble gajillionaires that you'll ever meet. But I know that is true no matter what division you go to across the country. Every division has carried that torch.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And Nick, I want to come back to you. Can you just talk about the impact of joining a BRG and being involved in YoPros? Kind of talk about how it's impacted your professional development and your career a little bit more.
Sure. That's a good question. I guess I'd kick it back to our three panelists today, because at different points in today's meeting, they've all mentioned how the network they build and the interconnectedness and the rapport that they have with other portions of the company is really what has helped them get through the sticking points or just help them progress their career at certain points throughout their tenure. And that is what I've been able to get out of the young professionals. It's a pretty exceptional opportunity where our meetings, they're once a month, they're about an hour long, maybe a little bit less, and they typically have about 35 to maybe 50 to 55 members on the call. And these are people from all over the company, all over the country, and from all different portions of the organization. So in sales, I don't often find myself interacting with finance people or architects or procurement or anything like that. But on young professionals, we all get on these calls and we have a single mission, which is like, how do we help each other develop further? And it allows us to create a network amongst ourselves of aspiring professionals. So whenever I have an issue, because I can't, read a survey map or something like that, I can go onto our chat and I can ask the question there. And without a doubt, someone's going to have that expertise that they can bring to the table and educate us. And it's not necessarily esoteric, specific information about the company, but it could just be like, hey, folks, I'm dealing with this issue with the customer. Has anyone else ever experienced this? And they can just give us general tips or what have you. So having that sort of, I'm going to keep using the term, that sort of network is something that I didn't have 2 years ago before the BRG started. So I really appreciate that opportunity.
Awesome. That's the perfect segue into our next question. Sean, I'm going to throw this one your way. What would be the advice to be successful at Pulte, even though you don't have a construction background? What are those steps to learn the business faster? And Nick kind of hit on that a little bit with his involvement in the BRGs and having exposures to different roles and responsibilities of other employees. But I would love for you to kind of tackle that question.
Sorry. I touched on it earlier with weaving your a job shadow exercise at least once or twice a year, a half day, a day, into following a different discipline around and just seeing what what their day is like. And then the other thing I would add is we hired you. One of the things that I look for when I interview people that want to join the team is competitiveness. And competitive people typically are really good Pulte employees. Unfortunately, competitive people aren't always willing to accept the fact that there might be a better way to do something out there and learn a best practice. And so I would encourage you, regardless of the discipline that you're in, to reach out to other team members in the same discipline, either through a BRG or typical email, and reaching out to somebody that's killing it and find out what they're doing. They might have a new way of doing something that you might not have considered before. I know it was something that I struggled with personally early in my career, coming from a family of 4. We were very competitive and we were always making a game out of something. So just understanding that there's another best practice that may be out there that you don't know about, and learning it and sharing it with the rest of your team.
Thanks, Sean. And we have time for one more question. I know we were not able to get to everyone's question, but we will have our panelists follow up with the remaining questions that we were not able to get to. Again, if you think of a question after the webinar is ended that you have for our panelists, please feel free to email that question to corporate.communications@pulte.com, and we'll send that over to our panelists to have it answered. Rebecca, we're going to close the Q&A out with you. While having a young family and growing your career at Pulte at the same time, what were the sacrifices you had to take on to get to DP? Long nights at the office, less time with the family, and how did you balance the two?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have an incredibly supportive husband, so I will start there. He actually gave up his career to stay home with our children almost 10 years ago. And so having that partner, which I realize isn't possible for everybody, be there to take care of some of the day-to-day things to enable me to really focus on the work has been incredible. He's outstanding. I think that I'm going to maybe cycle back to something my mom taught me a long time ago, and that is that there often isn't balance. It's often about counterbalance. And so it is about weighing the priority of what's happening at the time and investing your time and energy where it's most needed at that time. And so there are long nights at the office. There are many weekends that I invest in my work in addition to my family. And I think for me, it's been about ensuring that the time that I do get with my young and growing family is really quality time. And so we try to make sure that we play games. And of course, as you know, I'm a dancer, so we do our Saturday morning dance parties. And it's really been about that for me. They see how much I love the business. They used to ask me, every day when I was a sales leader, Mom, how many houses did you sell today? And I thought, oh, good, I have more bosses. And they should still be asking me that question today. But really, I think it's a counterbalance, and you have to find what works for you and your family. I carve out time with each of my kids. I'm actually going on a mother-daughter trip with my oldest here shortly to New York because she wants to see Hamilton on Broadway. And so that was her Christmas gift last year. So I'll be taking her there. So that's what I would say. For me, it's been a great counterbalance. It's been incredible having a supportive partner at home, and the hours all feel like they're worthwhile when you see, the impact we can have in the communities that we serve.
Wow, thanks for your perspective, Rebecca. Really, really appreciate it, and enjoy your trip to New York. So thank you, Rebecca, Sean, Charlie, and Nick for answering questions from the audience. At this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Nick, to close out the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brittany. And again, thank you to today's panelists for such an amazing conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar as much as I did, and I hope you all feel motivated to continue building your careers here at Pulte Homes. Look out for our follow-up email with today's recording, and check our diversity and inclusion SharePoint site for more information about joining a BRG. Also, please be sure to fill out our survey about the webinar. On behalf of Rebecca, Sean, Charlie, and as well as YoPros, thank you again for joining us and taking time to attend the meeting. Have a great day.
Thank you, Nick. Great job.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Nick.